Hey everybody, how's it going? So welcome back to Reigate Lake, welcome to Reel at My Park from scratch, and we have hit episode 14. I think the curse of episode 13 is now done with. I managed to order myself a new microphone from the Tinterwebs, and I think everything seems to be okay now. So it's something to do with the Windows 10 update breaking the software that I use for my other one, so I just decided to start from scratch. So if you're new to the channel, you're new to the series, welcome aboard. Absolutely love having anybody that's joining us for the first time, and likewise anybody that's coming back. Really appreciate you guys coming back to see how the park is developing. And if you have missed the last 3 episodes, we spent quite some time building ourselves a nice little hotel. So we started off with our entertainment complex building in the very front, and we also then did the accommodation building in the second episode. And then last episode we just then focused on the surrounding areas, so making sure that the car park is as it should be, making sure that the foliage and the landscaping and also the swimming pool area is exactly as we wanted it to be for the park itself. So if you're brand new to the series, and obviously we're now going to be moving on into the main park, so let me just recap where we're sitting where it comes to Reigate Lake. So Reigate Lake is a UK based park. We're talking medium budget, so if you were to take the prestige levels in the UK, we're talking somewhere between Drayton Manor and Thorpe Park. So we're not dealing with ridiculously massive investments, but we're not dealing with small park on the scale of the likes of Oakwood, for example. So we're dealing with a park that would be making investments on a clever basis. So whereas you may be tempted to sort of throw in as many high impact, high budget rides as you possibly can, you know, we're thinking like the B&M inverts, the RMCs of the world, all that sort of stuff. That's not going to be happening with this park. This park would have taken the decision to create very clever investments. So this is already coming into play with the attractions that we've already got. So for example, we've got a coaster over here that deals with sheer drop. So you wouldn't want a B&M dive machine in this park because you've got a Eurofighter that does that exact thing, but on a much smaller budget and on a much smaller scale. So the Eurofighter over here, in case you haven't seen it, was my celebration of 100 subscribers, so you know what to do if you haven't already subscribed. And it's called Centurion, so it was my thank you to 100 people that wanted to hear more of my dulcet tones rambling on about theme parks and Planet Coaster and playing a game. And then we come over to the other side of the park, so they slapped in an RMC that's very much just slapped down because they're easy, they're off the shelf, you just build them and be done with it. So that's kind of the principle that we were going for here, is that it had to be very janky, it had to be very plopped down, almost thoughtless and careless. But in terms of Planet Coaster, we made a lot of effort to actually make this decent. So this is thoroughly detailed, highly ultra detailed that you will find. Everything is fleshed out, everything has a purpose, so even down to the wires and the cables and everything, they actually go somewhere. So even though the actual detailing is ridiculously high in the Planet Coaster world, for the lore of the park, this is just slapped there. They just purchased it from Vekoma, they just did what they needed to do with it, and then they fill it out. But for that reason, they wouldn't be investing in a B&M invert, for example, because they are expensive. Well, they're much better, let's be honest, but they're far too expensive for the budget of this park at the time. And then ultimately later on they would have then invested in something a bit more cutting edge, and so they went for the stand-up coaster because that was all the rage in the early 90s. So this would have been the idea that they would have had over here, saying actually let's start to invest in something that's a bit groundbreaking that isn't really seen in other UK or European parks. How does this park, as a medium budget park, really start to fit itself into the theme park world? How does it start to cut through? And so this is how they would have done it, with some kind of a stand-up coaster. So for that reason, the future attractions that we're going to be doing, they're not going to be on this massive grand scale. They're going to be offering something different per roller coaster. So you don't want to really marry up any of your portfolio with similar facing rides. Like I said over here, you wouldn't want a dive coaster in this park because you've got the Eurofighter. You wouldn't want a B&M invert because you've got the SLC. You wouldn't want a flawless coaster because you've got the stand-up coaster, and they're far too similar as coaster models. So what I'm thinking along in here is we're going to need some kind of airtime machine. Don't know what that's going to be, but we're not dealing with a massive tall hyper or a giga. It's going to be something more subtle. Something, think along the lines of like an Intamin Blitz. An Intamin Blitz, or the Intamin Megalights. would be something that this park would probably look at. We're going to need the new headline coaster. Now that will be a high budget one, and I'm thinking that, especially when it comes to the UK and Europe in general, I'm thinking that's probably going to be a B&M wing coaster, because that seems to be like the flagship of parks at the moment. So that's probably going to come later on down the line. But we're also going to need coasters that offer other unique experiences. So we're going to need a launch coaster. It's not going to be a Mack coaster because they're going to be too expensive. So we're probably going to go for something from Vekoma, maybe the booster bikes. And then we're also going to need another kind of experiencey coaster, so probably a spinning coaster, but again, not a Mack spinner. It would probably be a Marathon, or however you say it, just butcher that name. So that's the kind of thinking that this park is going down. They're going for that innovative difference in rides, but they're not necessarily going down this path of ridiculously expensive high profile rides. They're going down for the very sort of subtle rides. And so this is the park as it stands at the moment. So it's been quite a while since we've been here, actually. Obviously this is released on Steam, you can download it and everything. We've got the entrance area with fully fleshed out ticket areas. The offices are all kitted out inside, so you've probably already seen this before, but for new people, so you've seen that the offices here are all kitted out. So are the admin offices behind as well, the business reception. The admin office is here, so everything in this park is detailed to the highest possible degree that my PC will allow. Yeah, and you've already seen that the autosave is now taking 8 minutes. 8-minute autosave. Let's just give an F in the chat for that. So yeah, so this is the entrance where you've got your guest services, you've got a couple of restaurants, you've got your gift shops, your box office, and the first ride. Round to the left, you've got your Eurofighter, which is the one of the newer roller coasters that would have been in the park. It was slapped sort of off the beaten track a little bit close to the car park because it was the only space they really had to put it in. And then over this side, we've just got a couple of flat rides, just to sort of act as a bit of a soak up of the crowds. You know, they're not key rides, they're just rides that you'd pass and you'd probably go on if you're passing it through. Then you've got the log flume, which was the first major attraction that we did in the whole series, and this sort of came to light just by the way that it's laid out. I wanted the path to go over the final drop a little bit like you see on the likes of Tidal Wave at Thorpe Park, for example. And then came the SLC and also then the stand-up coaster. So we're going to start working on these kinds of areas now. And so I think I know what I want to put in this sort of area. So this is going to be the area that we're going to focus on in this episode. It's going to be more family friendly, I guess. We're going to need a junior coaster, right? Because at the moment we've got big adult coasters. We don't really have anything for the kids to enjoy. So we need this area to be a bit more subtle. No real key attractions, because it's quite close to the lake. So I do want to put some kind of kiddie coaster in here, and a couple of like more soaky uppy attractions. So there's probably going to be some kind of observation tower. There's probably going to be something a bit spinny. I don't know what attractions I'm going to use yet, or the theme that it's going to be, but this is going to be the area that we're working in. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking because this is a really long intro at 8 minutes, right? So let's actually just get down to business and let's just do it. So I'll see you for the first update. Alright, so here's your first update, and it turns out that if you actually have the game on pause when the park is this big, the autosave no longer takes 8 minutes. It's actually relatively quick autosave, so that's what I've been doing. I've actually been playing it whilst on pause. It takes a bit of the fun out of the game. It just ends up being a bit of a building simulator, but actually it works. It's less frustrating, let's just say that. So this area has come together relatively quickly in the sense of the look and the feel and how I want it to be, but actually there's a lot of work that's gone into this. This is a good couple of hours, half a day's sort of work, and so I knew when I was doing this area I wanted to have an area the other side of the lake that's straight off the entrance area that the kids can straight away enjoy. You don't really want to be putting your family friendly kiddie area friendly stuff at the far back of the park because those kids have got to walk, right? So they're not going to want to struggle to go all the way across the entire park just to get to somewhere that they can enjoy. But I also wanted to make the most, or as much as I could, out of the actual lake area itself. And I've decided I am going to extend the lake around this way slightly, and I'm going to put a coaster of some variety in here just to fill the space, but that's going to come in later episodes. I don't even know if I'm going to get all of this done in this episode, but this is what I've come up with. So all of your kiddie friendly rides are in this area. So we've got ourselves teacups, we've got the balloons ride, we've got a viewing point or like an observation tower, and we've also got the what are they called? Well, no, what are they called? Scizzer in game. I know that much. I can't remember. Well, it's not the waltzer, is it? Because it's this anyway. The scissor in game. And so this is your more like daring-y thrill ride for the area. So when you're doing an area full of gentle rides, just for balance purposes, you kind of want to have a bit more of a slightly thrilling ride, just for those that are a bit more daring, but you don't want it to be too extreme in this kind of area. And so when I was designing the area, I knew that I had this path that was coming around the right-hand side of the lake that then went up to the SLC, and we also had this bridge that was coming straight across the lake. So this is going to be a key part of your park. There's going to be a lot of guests that are going to travel through this area, either coming from down this way where you've got your Eurofighter and going up to the SLC, or coming straight through to whatever we're going to place at the back of the park here, or coming through this way, coming up to our stand-up coaster and the log flume and everything. So this is actually a big money spinning area. This is where you're going to want to put your more gentler rides, so you're not attracting too many people to the area, but this is where you're going to really milk the money out of your guests. So for that reason, this is what I'm planning on doing in terms of facilities. So haven't actually placed any of the in-game facilities yet. I'm going to be doing that shortly. But we're going to have gift shop over here because it's straight off the coaster. But this is just going to be more of like a gift outlet. It's not going to be an established shop like we've got over by the SLC or over by the stand-up coaster. It's just going to be there. Then you've got your games that are literally in the way. So as you're coming across the bridge, you are literally going to be met with one of the games stalls. And then there's likewise with the paths that are coming this way and the path coming this way, you are met with a game stall. Straight away it's there. Then we're going to have a bigger restaurant, kind of making a thing of the actual lake area itself. So we're going to have a bit more foodie type stuff here. And then we're going to have games along this side, and then some just random food outlets just to dot out the area and just to start to flesh it out slightly. So just sandwiches and stuff that would come up here, and ice cream or something, sweets or whatever. I don't know. I'll decide when it comes to it. So that's kind of the idea that I'm going for. Now, in terms of this coaster, this is a proper kiddie coaster. So it's not really that exciting. It's a kiddie coaster, but it's nice and twisty, nice and turny, nice and droppy. So you I need to do all of like the catwalks and everything, but you come out of the station, you go around the corner and you go up your lift hill. This lift hill is at 20 degrees. I haven't done it to the full 30. So it means that in real life, it means that your younger kids will be able to go on it. So you're actually reducing, by having a shallower lift hill, you're reducing the age, like the lower age that somebody can actually ride this coaster. And then it flattens off at the top. And the reason that you do that is because these trains are really, really long. And the drive tyres, yeah, they're really strong. They're strong enough to take the actual train up the lift hill, but it needs to level off here so that it has the opportunity to start to gather momentum on this first drop and first twist round. So you level it off here just to allow the weight distribution, so the center of gravity, to eventually reach a tipping point so that it creates its own momentum and it's not fighting with itself in the middle. It's less chance of it stalling. Not that it would, because it's under drive tires, but it's less chance of it stalling on this point. And then it just goes into a couple of like real bunny hops and twists and turns. It's your typical kids coaster. The idea is you just do one lap of it, so you wouldn't do multiple laps. And I can run multiple trains on this one, so it's blocked off if need be. And I did some research into some of the other kiddie coasters that we've got in our portfolio, and because I was thinking about this brake run, should it be flat or should it be on an incline or decline? And actually, there are kiddie coasters out there that are on an decline on the actual first part of the brake run, and then they're flat for the second part of the brake run. So that's what I've done here. I've also created a queue that's probably a bit too long for this kiddie coaster. Actually, this would probably still hold about an hour's worth of people when you think of the throughput. And much to my dismay, I absolutely hate doing it, but I have made the station entrance and exit on the same side. purely because it means it sits flush to the actual pathway itself, so that's fine, and it means that I can bring the actual coaster past the station. Plans for this one, it's probably going to be an open air station, or not necessarily fully enclosed. It's just going to be a bit more of a lightly decorated station, and because of the nature of this coaster, it doesn't need a maintenance area as such, because all of the stuff that you're going to do to the actual ride itself would be done in the brake run and the station. So think along the lines of the likes of Flying Fish at Thorpe Park, or Kung Fu Panda at Gardaland. They don't have maintenance areas. They just have a concrete pad where you just dismantle the trains and then you just take them straight over to the maintenance sheds at the front of the park. So that's kind of what I'm going for here, but that also means then that I have a bit more space freed up that I can use for landscaping and queue lines and everything, and it just sits more flush to everything. And I think then what I want to do later on is bring the path round this way and have a more child-friendly ride here. So something along the lines of the cars, or something a bit more gentler that would come around this way. Partly because it then also draws guests here for the game purposes. So you're actually drawing guests into your area and through it, so I can show you the guest flow. So that's what I'm thinking. That's sort of where I'm sitting at the moment. There's no real theme that's coming to it. All I'm starting to do now is just to lay out how I want some of the paths for the rides. So I don't want to necessarily completely follow the outline of a ride. I kind of want to generate some kind of interesting, more line-based padding for concretes and stuff. So we'll see how that goes. Plenty of foliage, plenty of stuff to go around. So anyway, I'm going to carry on with this, and I will see you for the second update. So here's your next update, and I wanted to take the opportunity with this update to actually walk you through how I do the paths before I start to do all of the concreting, because eventually when this is all complete, everything that you see here pathwise is going to be covered in concrete, and it's going to be looking like it's all one massive plaza. So I just wanted to do the update before I started any of that process so that you can see how I actually do it. So you can see that in the shop area or the restaurant area that we've got down here, I've sort of started the process of putting the plaza area down, so it's just one big pathway, and then the actual pier area that's going to be jutting out into the actual lake itself, that's already got its wood effect and everything down. And then inside here I'll just use a path cover to make this an actual floor, and then out the front here I'm going to use some kind of brickwork or something to make it a patio, so just to break it up a little bit. And then you can see that, like, before I do any of the inverted commas colouring in of any of the plaza areas, you can see that actually things are quite a mess. So like this area here, I've put the fencing around the outside of the actual ride itself, and this is where the perimeter of the concrete is going to go. So all of this in here is going to be filled in, and all of this is going to be filled in. So you're not actually going to know, that's really loud, you're not actually going to know that it's a mess underneath it. It's going to look like it's one solid piece of concrete, and you see that quite well over here. So I've designed this specifically to be a dogleg, and I wanted it to be a stark, very angular dogleg. I didn't want it to be smooth. I didn't want it to swoop around a corner into a dogleg. I wanted it to be a stark angle change. And so as you can see, it doesn't quite line up with the actual queue and the pathways. And so what I've done here is I've used the firehouse windowsill just to line off the path, just to hide some of the unsightly edges. And then I've put the fences all across here. And then, like I say, they don't actually line up to the edges of the path. But once you've got all of the concrete in, you're not going to notice that this is the path underneath. And luckily for us, the game, when it comes to narrow queues like this, the guests tend to only use the middle of the path anyway. So you do tend to have a bit of a gap either side, so that you can have this kind of like childlike not colouring between the lines effect. So you'll see that this is done by design. And then all I do from there is I start to then put the flower beds in. So where I'm going to want to have some kind of foliage or some kind of something just to hide the edge of the path. And so you can see here that it doesn't actually line up with the edge of the path that I've laid down. It lines up with the edge of the queue. But given that this is all going to be coloured in with concrete, and this bit will be as well, you're not actually going to notice that this doesn't actually line up properly. It will just be one smooth swoop. These are actually the pathing misdemeanors that I that I've been talking about all along, like the crimes to pathing. And then up here, I've got the same principle. So I've laid down where I can the path around the outside of what I want the actual game stalls to be. So where I can, I've put a square around it. But this one, for example, I can't. So all I've done is I've just plopped it on the top of the path. And then underneath, I've got the barriers to stop people walking through. So this is kind of done by design, because I would have had too much of a gap if I had the path coming this way, this way, this way, and this way. There was too much of a gap in the middle, so I needed to fill it in with something, but I didn't have enough room to fill it in with a square. So it's just unfortunately a case of plopping it on the top. And likewise here, you can see that the path is not flush to the wall, and this side there isn't even a path there. So when this is all coloured in concrete, you're not going to know. You won't know any different, and it will just look like it's one solid mass. Same here. It doesn't actually line up with the edge of the path, and that's done by design because you need space to fit the queue in this path in. But again, when the concrete is in, you're not going to know any different. Likewise with this curve and everything in this queue, you won't notice the gaps in the actual queue lines themselves where the grass is poking through. This will all be concrete. This bit here, I'm going to actually leave. Well, I'll still concrete it, but it's going to be pretty much as you see it. But the biggest change, or the biggest noticeable effect, is going to be around the actual teacups area itself. So you've got loads and loads of green space here that normal players would probably just leave or would decorate with some kind of flowers and foliage and stuff. But I want this to actually be an open area. That's really loud. An open area of like just concrete. And so that takes me on quite nicely to the actual design of the area. So I wanted to keep this quite simple, but I wanted to use almost Tudoresque kind of theming, inverted commas theming to this. I wanted it to feel like this area of the park is probably here for the longest, particularly around the teacups. I imagine the teacups would have been here along with the merry-go-round that we've got at the very front of the park, which we're saying was probably legacy. It's been here since the park opened. These teacups would probably have also been around and would have been by the waterfront, and everything else around it has been added through time. And so that's why the teacups looks ever so slightly different to the rest of the stuff that we've got going around. I've kept it nice and generic and nice and bland wherever I can, but I'm still using the hints of more Tudory style architecture. So you'll see that in like the wood effects that we've got here, and the fact that the roof here isn't actually solid, it's all wood beams. This took forever to do. It's still not done. I still don't completely love it, but this is essentially the old Masked Bandit trick. Well, I saw it on Masked Bandit. I don't know if he's used somebody else's trick, but you essentially do 1/4 and then you split that into the sections that you want, and you just do one section, and then you copy that to be the exact opposite. So you've got a 180, and then you copy all of that and you do a 360, and then you just keep copying it around with the angle snap on, and eventually you end up with it completely symmetrical. And then all you need to do then is just tidy up the bits around the outside, any of the loose bits, anything that doesn't quite fit as it should. And I wanted the idea of these flowers in the queue line. Again, this would be something that the ride would have been here all along, so I kind of wanted to get that feeling across. I wanted that to have that kind of effect. They would probably have made a little bit of an effort in this area. I need to put another flower bed there, actually, by the looks of it. Yeah, so the teacups itself are looking very pretty. Change the colours just to give it a bit of a difference. And then the bunting, it pretty much the park colours is that blue, the blue, the yellow, the pink and the white. So there's just the bunting along there. Over on the really noisy roller coaster then, I've just done a really simple design. Again, this, I say simple, it took quite a while to get right. I wanted this whole like lattice work with the roof, and I needed somehow to join the lattice together, so I've put these blocks in because that's the smallest piece that I actually have in game that I can use for this purpose. So you have these buttresses that are like joined, and then they sort of hit up on the wooden roof, and they support it that way. I wanted to keep the station as bland as possible. I wanted to keep it as simple as possible, and the colour scheme as simple as possible as well, but whilst considering guest sightlines. So I didn't want this just to be one solid single level roof. I wanted it to be a bit of a split level, double level roof, just because it breaks up the sightline slightly, gives you something a little bit more interesting to look at. But I also wanted to make it out as if this coaster's probably been here for a while, so we've got a bit more sort of like the Tudory. Well, these are actually from. It's really loud. Stop it. It's actually from the Haunted House pack. Oh, great, autosave time. So from the Haunted House pack. So anyway, that's pretty much the update. I'm gonna stop that here because the autosave is tending to crash the game whilst I'm recording. So I'm just gonna stop and get on with it. I've said all I wanted to anyway, so I'm going to carry on, and I'll see you for the next update. So I wanted to do a real quick update on this one, just to illustrate my points from before, just so that it brings it to life for those of you that are wanting to see it actually come to life. So you saw it in the previous update where all of the paths and everything were just laying down and it needed the colouring in, and this is what I was talking about. So I've gone along now and I've put in the concrete where I want the concrete to be. Obviously this needs its detailing phase and it needs stuff doing, but it's just the concrete that's been laid down. So what I've done is I've laid out all of the flower beds and put the mulch down, and then I've put the concrete down, and this is what I mean. So you now don't actually notice that this doesn't marry up at all. The concrete is now flush to the actual flower beds, so you've now got a nice clean swoop around here rather than seeing the grass and the gaps in the middle and everything. So this is kind of like what you do to hide all of your concrete that's underneath it. You raise a flower bed up so that it doesn't matter that your concrete overlaps underneath. So this is just still one slab. It goes right the way across. I've just put the flower bed and everything just on the top, and it hides it nicely. And then underneath the game stall, exactly the same principle here. So the concrete just goes straight through, and now you don't notice that you've got the gaps either side. And this is the biggest one. This is the biggie. So now you don't actually know that this hasn't been coloured in at all. You don't notice that there's grass and everything under here. You don't know where the actual path line is because the concrete pad just goes straight through. So it's now hiding that nicely. And all I now need to do is just put some planters and some flower beds and some more like bins and things and lampposts and whatever along here just to make it flush. Oh, I've missed a thing. Just to make it flush against everything, to make it look like it's one concrete pad. So that's kind of how you achieve that wide open plaza area look. And you can see here, like, I haven't changed anything. The gaps are still there, and the gaps are still over here, but it's now flush to everything, and that's exactly how you make the plaza areas and make them look like they are one solid concrete pad, even though underneath they really aren't. It's all about the trick of the eye. It's the magic of Planet Coaster and the magic of building. So I hope that's helped anyway. I'm going to carry on and I'll see you for the next update. So much to talk about in this update then. So there's been a lot of work that's been put into this one, and I'm only about halfway through where I actually want it to be. The area is only just starting to come together as an area. It now needs to come to life. And so I'm starting to move away from this idea of the Tudor architecture that I wanted for this part of the park. And that's purely because I was doing this restaurant down here. It's very much inspired by one at Canada's Wonderland. And it turned out to be quite Art Deco in design. And it sort of fitted the area quite nicely. And I was thinking, well, what's the story of the area? Because it needs to come together. And my whole story would be that this would have been built in the 80s. It would have been modern at its time. It's probably been refitted a couple of times to have a more modern interior. But the exterior itself has been kept mostly intact. And so the teacups would have been here around that same time as well. So would the coaster. So the whole area needed that kind of bit more wooden, rusticy type feel to it than it did the Tudor, well-kept theme area. And this is what I was talking about earlier on with the with all of the paths. I know I did a real quick update to show you how it all comes to life, but this is it in a bit more context. So I've put all of the path covers down for most of the area, and I've also filled out the mulch for the areas that I want there to be flower beds. And you can see that this is how this all comes together. So all of the lines are now flush, and everything now looks like it's just one solid concrete pad, and the queues now have all of its bits hidden, so the grass bits hidden. And I've just started now to lay out where I'm going to potentially want planters for trees, just to break up the sheer concrete slab that we've now created, because that just creates a little bit of variation into the actual design itself. And so the queue line for the actual observation tower, this is exactly as I pictured it to be, that really stark angular queue line, the dogleg queue line, and then the squaring off of the actual pad that the ride sits on, with exception to this one corner where it actually follows the path. So this is exactly as I wanted it to be. And likewise over here with the balloons ride as well. So you've got this squaring off of the actual pad, and then it comes down and meets the rounded edge. And then you've got the squaring off up here with the topiary bushes up here at the hedge as well. So that's exactly as I wanted that as well. But especially from here, you can sort of see that it's just a cattle pen queue, but it's got a bit of variation to it. And then you wouldn't necessarily put anything in here. It would just be open concrete. In real life, what you'd probably find is that this operator booth that we can't move would actually be more down here. So we're dealing with Planet Coaster, aren't we? We're limited to what we can actually do. Hello. So the teacups ride itself, then I've just done a couple of corrections around the actual thing itself. I realised that I had actually made some things that were missing. It still needs a bit of detailing. There's still some stuff that I want to do in here, lamps and bins and that sort of stuff. I don't think this ride's going to be, and there's a missing fence. I don't think this ride is going to be very much used in game because the prestige of it isn't actually that good. So even though I've changed the ride sequences and stuff to try and up it, you sort of get to a point where your ride sequences are really inefficient. You might have a long ride sequence, but it doesn't boost the prestige much, so there's no point. And over here, again, just put the flower beds in, laid down all of the concrete as I want it, so it's now all uniform and nice. I did toy with the idea of having a brick texture along here, like we did with over in the western area, and like we've got with some of the areas at the front of the park, but actually the stark smooth concrete worked all so much better. Such a nicer bland concrete, if there ever was such a thing. And then so over on the coaster itself, not much has changed just yet. I've got loads of detailing that I want to do in this area. So this maintenance area would actually be kept relatively clear. There would only be small amounts of clutter, so we're not dealing with the same level of detail of the maintenance areas that we would do with the other coasters, because everything for this coaster maintenance wise happens elsewhere, happens off site. Junior coasters are really easy to maintain. They are literally just a case of removing the wheels, take the train off, stick it on the back of a lorry, and off it goes. There's no heavy maintenance involved as such when it comes to more junior coasters. Then I've just started the process over here of the photo booth. Easy. There we go. So just started the process of the photo booth. Again, this is just starting to come together as a concept. I don't really know what direction it's going to be taking. I don't even know if I like the colour scheme. I just threw it together because blue and white goes nicely together for the junior coaster, but it feels a bit like childish navy, you know, like Noddy. Showing my age a little bit, kids program Noddy, it just feels a bit like rubbish. But anyway, I'm going to see how it develops, because it might actually come to life. You know, when we start putting flowers and stuff in, it starts to break up this stark contrast. Need to do the coffee and donuts place. Haven't really thought about how that's going to look yet, and likewise with the stuff that's over this side as well. I still need to sort that out. But the big one of the area, this is the biggie. So I remember talking about this with the slogans that are on Bergs, and it was a bit of an homage to the stuff that's in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 and a brand that I used to run over there in park when I used to play like as a game called Eat It. And then there was a brand called Drink It, and then there was the souvenir brand called Buy It. And they all had this logo, this red and blue logo, and I thought, actually, this would be awesome if we could put this in game. So I put Bergs over the other side, because you know that every park I create has got that, and I just wanted to have something a little bit more paying homage to Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 and how influential that has actually been on everything that I've ever done, and especially as it's topical because it's out this week again, so you can buy it again. And so I just wanted this idea of very Art Deco, and I had originally sort of had this as normal walls, and I've ended up going down beams for walls, and I'm sorry for that. Because I actually got a much better texture, a much better control over the walls themselves by doing them as beams than I did in game pieces. So this is why it's taken so long. It's taken forever to do. But the result actually speaks for itself. Like, I like how the windows, obviously still need glass and everything adding in, but I like how the windows have come together, and I like how the the front texture is now smooth, whereas the stucco is a bit more textured. It's a bit rougher, but the panel is too smooth. So beams actually gives you a bit of a nicer texture. And this Art Deco style, I've seen this before. I think it's Brighton Pier. This idea of just random rectangles that create a bit of an arty shape, just to give it a bit of zazz. And then we've got this paving down the bottom here, just to give it a nice little paving area, and then we've got loads and loads of benches and everything around. We've got a Gulpy in the doorway. He's saying hello, and then inside we have a fully fledged out restaurant. So it's functional in game. So you've got ribs, you've got Gulpies going on, and I just need to put the videos and everything on the screens. But it's got like everything you would expect to have in the restaurant. So I've got some decorations on the ceilings and whatever, and the lights. And then you come into the seating area, and it's all like kitted out with modern wood. So this is what I was saying before. It's probably been refitted inside for quite some time, or quite a few times, but it's still like there. It's still going. I've done all of the detailing around as the autosave kicks in. I've done all of the detailing around then. So we've got our fire points, we've got sauces, we've got bins that actually work as bins inside the actual black squares. We've got the napkins and everything that are around. We've got plants, and we've got benches and everything, and these people are about to walk through something, so I need to put some God, I need to put the barriers in, don't I, to stop them walking through. And so I went down this idea of having the panels on the walls. So because I've used beams as walls, I've had to also end up putting panels on the other side to make the interior walls, and it looks really good. I wanted this idea of grey and colour, and then the wood effect that's then breaking it up elsewhere. So that's the update for now anyway, because I've got loads to do, and the next one you're going to see is probably going to be finished. So I think let's just crack on and get it done, shall we, and see how it turns out. I'll see you for the next one. Right then, here comes the done for now stamp. I've got a little bit of work that I still need to do. So stuff like the approach here, I need to do some work. But when I do the lake work around here, there's some things over here I need to do, like the outlets and whatever. So I'm leaving that be for the minute, like we did with the ice cream stand and everything that was up here that lasted a couple of episodes. There's a few things I need to do down here before I touch up that area. And also over by the scizzer, there's some stuff that's a brewing in this area, so I'm keeping this area completely clear as well. So I've not finished the shops, and I've not finished the game stalls and stuff that I want along here, purely because this is probably going to be more in the style of what's coming here. So I'm keeping that as it is for now, but as you can see, for the rest of the area, it's pretty much done. I mean, as always with all of the other areas, there's going to be times when I'm going to come back and I'm going to realise that I've forgotten a few things, or I'm going to want to touch some stuff up. So So yeah, that's where we're sitting right now. So from across the lake, this is how it looks, and well, it looks there's a tree in the way. So yeah, this is how it's looking from across the lake. So you can see that the very tall observation tower is there, but the rest is relatively hidden, and I've done that by design. The idea is that you're supposed to want to be able to go and explore. So you're going to go, oh, what's across the bridge? And that's what you're going to do. So you're going to walk across the bridge, and you're then going to start to see the starting point of this restaurant area. So you're going to start to see that come into view, come into sight, and then you're going to carry on walking. Then you open up into the area. And so, as I've talked about already in this, this area needs to be a bit wider, and it needs to be a bit vaster, and a bit more blank and bland than the rest, because this is almost like the central spoke of the hub of the wheel. So a lot of guests are going to be coming through this area, so you need to create some kind of space for them to congregate and to bottleneck and everything. And in fact, this is probably still a little bit tight, but it's fine. And we've placed all of our stalls and everything in the way. So in theory, if they did realise that something was not quite right, they could remove these quite easily. They're just like pop-up things that they just plonk on top of the concrete, and this then would open up into a plaza area. So that's all good. That's all good. So game stall then, they're all really simple. I wanted to keep them nice and simple. Hello. So here we go with the mugs from the other side. So it's the same. It's essentially the same game. And then the other game stall is the ring toss. So I've just cluttered it out with the prizes and stuff that you can can get in here, but otherwise it's just fairly simple. I figured electric wise that you'd only have one electric point in all of the 3 game stalls, so this electric point here would feed the 3 game stalls that you've got here, here, and here, and so that's what I'm going down. In fact, if anything, you probably wouldn't even have an electric point there. It would probably be hidden away elsewhere, but it's fine. We've done it elsewhere in the park, so and I've seen it before. Like I've seen sort of like things where we've had to do health and safety and whatever to make sure that risk assessments and whatever. So we've now got some rides and we have some names. So we've got Bloon, probably most imaginative called ride, right? In fact, none of these are actually imaginative in any way, shape or form, I'm not even going to lie. So Bloon is here, and this is what I was talking about with the concrete pad. So this has now come together quite nicely. I've just added a couple of bins and all its signage and everything that it needs. I realised, by the way, these signs are from my curious mind. And if you haven't checked out the Thought Park recreation, the Thought Park recreation from my curious mind, you really need to go and check that out, because it is awesome. It's like photorealistic awesome. And I kind of just threw away like mentioning these signs, and I didn't realize they were actually for a much bigger project. So these are gonna, we need some credit, right? So my curious mind, these signs are awesome. And then we come across to the next ride, actually. So we have tea party. So we've got a tea party going on. This is just the teacups. I think this queue is probably a bit overkill. I don't think we're ever going to need the extended queue itself. But hey, it's fine. It looks all right. But again, in the interest of keeping the area wide open, they could remove it quite easily. It's just fences on top of concrete, so they wouldn't have any issue there. Over here, I've had to keep this one called Scizzer, purely because it's branded, like, as we already know in game, it is what it is, because the lights already spell out what it is, so it just makes sense to keep it what it's called. But yeah, I've just put all of the plants and everything around the front. And like I say, there's some things afoot when we come to the bits that's coming back here. So I'm going to fill out the rest of the nature and everything once that's done. But it's already actually sitting at 100% Q rating anyway, so it's all good in that aspect. Then our observation tower itself, that's called View. Imaginative, right? And you can see that this dog leg now just works awesomely. And this is what I was talking about with the plants. It just sort of looks awesome. It hides all of the concrete. It breaks up that very stark area. Yeah, this is exactly as I wanted it to turn out. I didn't want the queue to follow the path, not like the junior coaster does over here. I wanted it to have a separate area where it was very much planted and it was set back. So, and then just some trees and stuff in just to create some shade, because this is going to have quite a queue, right? It's quite a long ride, so this is going to end up with quite the queue on a sunny day. And then we're going to come over here. We come over to the roller coaster. Now we have a name. It's called Typhoon, and you can see then that the queue is all done. Trees in the way, get out of the way. So it's just like a cattle pen. It goes round the corner, and then it goes just up around the top here, just for the sake of it. Just, you know, add a 5-minute part of the queue for when it's busy. And then it comes back down into the station area. So the station have all of our staff and our touch points and everything. You'd only need 2 staff on this one. You've only a 2-row train, and it's a relatively long train. But we're dealing with kids and lap bars, so it's not a particularly difficult ride to actually check. And you've only running one train as well, so you're not exactly up against time pressures to get the next train in. So you just need the two members of staff. Put all the signage across, and I've fixed all the fences and stuff on the outside. And also did the maintenance area. So realise that you're going to want some kind of access from the maintenance side. So I put the ladders in from the actual station itself, so you can come down. And then you would have the extra train sitting in here. That's really loud. Then you'd have the extra train sitting in here when it's not in use. And like I said before, you dismantle it and take it off site. I've put the road in so that that's in place, and then whatever ride we're going to put in here and connect the pathway up. that's all going to be good. That'll then hide the road quite nicely. And then just inside the station, I've just put all of the lights and everything in, making sure that all the lighting is correct. And underneath the station as well, just put all of the cables that you would find. Now you wouldn't find heavy electrics underneath here. You would just find in fact it's a bit of a crawl space than anything else, but you'd just have some emergency stop points, and they would be located all the way up the station, just in case there is a problem that you need to sort out. So job done. And then we come over to the photo booth. So we're going to come across here, and I detailed this out. So I wanted to put two bigger screens up, so I wanted the two videos. So I've just put one screen that's just not working properly, and then the other one is the anniversary video that was released by Frontier themselves, so just put that up. But then otherwise the actual photo area is pretty much your standard, pretty much your standard setup. So it's your photo screens, and it's your printers and stuff that you've got in here. There's nothing really new here. But what I wanted to do was to have it actually usable. So I know that at the moment we're building quite a lot in the game that's not really usable. So I wanted to make sure that this was. So I put Hat's Fantastic one side, Looney Balloons the other side, so you can actually come in and get stuff. And then I've just put the concrete across as well, just to make the impression that it's actually one wider concrete pad. Put some vending machines in then, and just kitted those out with the other vending machines, just to sort of bulk it out, fill it out a little bit, so it doesn't look so empty. Wrong way. And then we've also got the pip shop ones from the TMTK. I haven't actually used them in park yet, so I thought these would be good little space fillers, and so that's what I've done there, just fill some space with some stuff. And then the last thing on the outside, before I show you the biggie, is beans. And I thought about the name, and because I was building this with beams, I was like, brooms, oh, beans. And that's kind of the thought process that went into it. It's pretty much all the thought that went into it, to be fair. But it's just a coffee shack. It's nothing particularly special. It just does what it needs to do. It's just there. It's just on the way, and there's just a couple of seats and everything on the outside. But then we come to the main event of the area. So other than the actual coaster itself, Eat It. So it has a nice little patio. We've already seen this, there's not much that's actually changed. I've just done some detailing. So we've got all of the flowers and everything on the outside now, so it's a bit more of a shaded, dappley area. And I've just put all the glass in. I had to change some of the windows around just to fit where the glass is, so I can hide some of the seams and the joins and whatever. And then come in and I've just put the rest of the signage up. So there's some new posters that have gone up, and there's all of the escape signage and everything. We've now got the video screens. They're now all working. And then on the other side, just put some more clutter and stuff around, just to make it all spot on. And then out on the patio, nice little patio area. Again, not too busy. I didn't want to keep this busy. I wanted this to be a bit empty, because your focus is the lake, right? Your focus isn't behind you on the walls or anything. So this is the view at the moment that you get across the lake. So it's looking awesome. You've got the train station. You've got Centurion in the background that you can just sit and watch if that's what you wanted to do. You've got the entranceway and the fountain, and then you've got over here, you can see the other rides in the supporting area. And then if you look behind, you can see the SLC and View. So yeah, the actual patio area, the pier area, whatever you want to call it, has turned out quite well. For an accidental placement as well, I sort of just dumped this down just because I thought, oh, that's a nice jaunty little angle, but it turns out it actually serves a bit of purpose. So there you go. There's the overview of the area. That's what we've done in this episode. Huge amount of work, this one. This has been a lot of work, probably more than the hotel entrance building, for sure. This area was actually probably on a par to the first episode that we did, where we were detailing the office spaces and the tickets and everything. So thank you for sticking around until the end. Thank you for watching this episode, everybody. So really appreciate the community. You know what to do if you want to know when the next episode comes up. So that's the subscribe button. Leave a like on the video if you do like what you see. It all helps the algorithms to find the channel. And in the next episode, we're going to be dealing with the secretive this area. I can't wait. So excited. So guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you all soon. Until we speak again, please, please, please keep yourself safe. See you soon. Bye bye.